So imagine this. What if a church looked like it had everything going for it? A great reputation, lots of activity, maybe even what we'd call success. And then it gets a message saying it's completely dead. Well, that is the shocking diagnosis right at the heart of one of the most direct messages in the entire book of Revelation, the warning to the church in Sardis.
Just listen to this line. You have a name that you are alive and you are dead. I mean, really think about that for a second. How can something have a reputation for being so full of life, but in reality be lifeless? That's the puzzle we're going to unpack today.
To really get this spiritual message, we first have to understand this city itself. Sardis wasn't just any town. It was this incredibly wealthy, powerful capital sitting way up on this massive plateau with these sheer cliffs on three sides. It was legendary. People thought it was literally unconquerable. And that history, that overconfidence, well, that's the key to this whole thing.
Now, the story of how Sardis fell is just fascinating. And get this, it happened twice, in almost the exact same way. The guards thought, hey, nobody can get up these cliffs, so they got complacent. They literally fell asleep. And both times, an enemy soldier found some hidden, forgotten path, and the whole city was taken by stealth, not by some big, epic battle. It fell because it just stopped watching. And that idea of falling asleep on the job becomes the central metaphor for everything that follows.
So, the history of this supposedly invincible city becomes a perfect mirror for its church. Just like Sardis had a reputation for being unbeatable, the church in Sardis had this amazing reputation for being spiritually alive. From the outside looking in, you'd think, wow, that's the perfect church. It was known for all its activity and success.
But here's where we see this huge disconnect. On one hand, you have what everyone else saw: activity, growth, popularity. But on the other hand, you have what Jesus saw. And the Greek word he uses is nekros. Now, that doesn't just mean weak or maybe a little tired. No, it means a corpse. Total spiritual lifelessness. It's exactly what the Apostle Paul talked about later, having a form of godliness but denying its power. And this really gets at the difference between two kinds of life. See, the church had a ton of bios. That's just natural outward life. It's the busyness, the programs, the events. But what it was missing completely was Zoe. That's God's eternal inner life, the kind of spiritual vitality that only comes from a real, genuine connection with Him. It's like the machine was running, making all the right noises, but it wasn't actually plugged into the power source. So you have to ask, who is it that's making this absolutely devastating assessment? Well, the message comes from Jesus, and the specific ways He describes Himself here are no accident. They establish exactly why He has the authority and the ability to see the reality hiding behind their shiny reputation. First, He's described as the one who has the 7 spirits of God. Now, this isn't about 7 different spirits. It's a symbol, and it means the complete fullness of God's Spirit. He has perfect spiritual insight. His vision isn't blurry, it's not fooled by appearances. He sees the true spiritual condition of things with absolute, perfect clarity.
And second, He has the 7 stars, which represent the true church. And the language here implies possession, not just kind of loosely holding on to something. This points to His intimate ownership, His deep connection to His people. So He's not some outside critic just throwing stones. He's the head of the body, speaking with authority and love for what is truly His.
Okay, so this diagnosis is harsh. I mean, really harsh. But it's not a final condemnation. Buried inside this warning is this little seed of hope. It's actually an urgent, almost loving wake-up call, an invitation to change course before it's truly too late. And here is the command: strengthen what remains and is about to die. This tells us that even in this spiritually dead church, there was still a small remnant. It's like finding a few fading embers in a big pile of cold ash. There was still a flicker of true life left. The command wasn't to just give up and start over, but to find that little flicker and fan it back into a flame. And then comes the warning that brings this whole thing full circle. If you do not watch, I will come like a thief. See, Jesus is using their city's own history against them. Just like Sardis fell because its guards were asleep, the church was in danger of being caught totally unprepared by its own spiritual sleepiness and overconfidence.
So we've looked at the city, we've looked at the church, and we've heard the warning. But what does any of this ancient history mean for us, right here, right now? Well, it all boils down to this timeless struggle between reputation and reality.
The really critical takeaway for us is that this temptation to substitute a good reputation for actual reality, or to mistake a lot of activity for authentic spiritual life, that temptation is just as real and just as powerful today as it ever was in ancient Sardis.
The lessons from Sardis are so clear and they still hit hard. God isn't impressed by our reputation. He's looking for real, spirit-filled life. All of our programs and all our activity, if they aren't actually flowing from a genuine connection with Jesus, are ultimately empty. We can look so alive to the world and be spiritually dead on the inside. So here's the bottom line. We must never confuse busyness for God with true spiritual vitality from God. They are not the same thing.
And all of this leaves us with a final, really searching question. A question for every church, every organization, and honestly, for every single one of us. Is all our busyness a true sign of God's life flowing through us, or are we just building a good reputation?